Welcome to the F-Bound Podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Schroeder, Executive Function Coach. I help neurodivergent women learn tips and strategies to improve the life skills that will help them be successful. Breaking the cycle of task avoidance. Do you ever find yourself putting off tasks that you know you need to do? Maybe you procrastinate until the last minute, feel guilty or shamed about it, and then avoid the task altogether. You're not alone. Task avoidance is a common challenge for many of us, but it can be especially tough for neurodiverse people who may face additional hurdles due to executive dysfunction. But don't worry, breaking the cycle of task avoidance is possible, and in this post, we'll explore some strategies you can use to overcome this cycle and get things done. The cycle of task avoidance. We all have times when we put things off until the last minute, but when this becomes a pattern, it can be hard to break out of. This pattern is what we call the cycle of task avoidance, and it usually goes something like this. First, you procrastinate. You might spend time checking your phone, getting lost in social media, or just daydreaming, anything to avoid the task at hand. You might not even be aware that you're avoiding the task. Then, as the deadline approaches, panic sets in. You start to feel guilty or ashamed of your procrastination. You worry about the consequences of not completing the task. You might even feel like a failure. So, you avoid the task altogether. You might find other things to do, like cleaning your house or organize your closet, to feel productive without actually completing the task you're avoiding. You convince yourself that you couldn't get the task done because you were so busy with other things. Finally, once the deadline is passed and you've successfully avoided the task, you might feel a temporary sense of relief, unless you're facing down consequences. This relief is often short-lived as the cycle begins again with the next task. Does any of this sound familiar? If so, don't worry. We're going to explore some of the triggers and obstacles that might be keeping you stuck in this cycle of task avoidance and offer some tips for breaking free. Triggers and obstacles. Boredom. For most people, boredom or lack of interest in a task can trigger procrastination. This is usually on a small scale, and neurotypical people can push aside their boredom to complete the task. Neurodiverse people can't always do that. Overwhelm. In addition, when a task feels overwhelming, it can be easy to put it off and avoid it altogether. For instance, if you need to write a report for work, but you don't enjoy writing, the report will feel like a daunting task. As a result, you might find yourself putting it off, procrastinating, and avoiding it altogether. Fear of failure. Fear of failure can also be a common trigger for procrastination. If you're worried about not doing a task well, it can paralyze you. You're so sure that you're going to screw it up that you can't even start. Then, as the deadline looms, you might finish it, but it's not as good as you wanted it to be, so you feel justified in your original fear. Anxiety. Anxiety or stress related to a task can also trigger procrastination. This often works hand in hand with fear of failure. If a task feels overwhelming or stressful, it can be hard to get started. You might not be able to figure out how or where to start because your anxiety is so high. Executive dysfunction. As a neurodiverse woman, you may face additional obstacles in completing tasks. Sensory issues can make it hard to focus in noisy or chaotic environments. Executive function challenges, like difficulty with planning or organization, can make it hard to break down complex tasks into manageable steps. In order to break the cycle of task avoidance, you need to know what your personal triggers are and how to recognize them. One way to help you identify your triggers is to keep a journal or a log of your procrastination patterns. Take note of what types of tasks you tend to avoid, when you tend to avoid them, and how you feel when you're avoiding them. This can help you start to recognize patterns and identify specific triggers and obstacles. Once you've identified your triggers and obstacles, you can start to develop strategies for addressing them. Strategies. Here are some techniques that you can use to start breaking the cycle of task avoidance. Number 1, break tasks down into smaller, more manageable steps. If you're feeling overwhelmed by a task, smaller, manageable steps make it less daunting. By taking a step-by-step approach, you can make progress on the task without feeling overwhelmed. Number 2, use a timer or schedule to structure your time. Many of us struggle with time management, which can lead to procrastination and task avoidance. To help structure your time and stay on track, try using a timer or schedule. Set specific blocks of time for working on tasks and take breaks in between to recharge. This can help you stay focused and motivated. Number 3, use positive self-talk. Negative self-talk can be a major barrier to progress, especially if you struggle with anxiety or self-doubt. To counteract negative self-talk, try using positive self-talk instead. If you find yourself thinking, I can't do this, try reframing it as this might be challenging, but I can take it one step at a time. By shifting your mindset, you can build confidence and motivation. Number 4, create a supportive environment. Your environment can have a big impact on your ability to focus and stay on task. To create a supportive environment, try minimizing distractions and creating a workspace that feels comfortable and calming. For instance, you might try working in a quiet room, using noise-canceling headphones, or adding plants or other calming elements to your workspace. Number 5, practice self-compassion. Finally, it's important to practice self-compassion as you work to break the cycle of task avoidance. Remember that procrastination is a common struggle, and it's okay to make mistakes or have setbacks along the way. Instead of beating yourself up, try offering yourself kindness and understanding. Treat yourself as you would your best friend or child. By treating yourself with compassion, you can build resilience and motivation. Remember, breaking the cycle of task avoidance takes time and effort. By using these strategies and staying committed to your goals, you can make progress and achieve success. Breaking the cycle of task avoidance can be challenging, but it's not impossible. By understanding the cycle, identifying your triggers and obstacles, and using specific strategies, you can break the cycle. Procrastination is a common struggle, but with the right tools and mindset, you can overcome it and achieve your dreams. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the F-Bomb Podcast. Thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe below and check out my show notes to learn more about my Facebook group, courses, and membership.